Smokey Robinson, the legendary artist with a silky smooth voice and soulful eyes, has long been admired as a romantic, gentle soul. His timeless love songs have left an unforgettable mark on music history, touching hearts across generations. But behind the charm and the spotlight lies a deeper, more human story, one shaped by personal struggles, quiet battles, and moments of loss that few ever see. Despite his success, Smokey's journey hasn't been without pain, resilience, and growth. Today, we're peeling back the curtain to explore the lesser-known side of this music icon, the man behind the music and the untold stories that made him who he is. If these facts surprised you, drop a 1 in the comments. If not, type 0, we want to know what you think. Enjoy the video, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss more inspiring stories like this. Just to hold her in my arms one more time. The lyric plays softly, but the story behind it is far more complicated than it seems. The truth? It may have lasted longer than anyone imagined, because at the time I was married. Yes, it all happened afterward, but Smokey Robinson isn't quite the man we thought he was. Behind that sweet, soulful voice was a man battling addiction, quietly entangled in a forbidden relationship with Diana Ross, and carrying a secret few people know. He fathered a child kept hidden from the public eye. At the same time, Smokey Robinson was locked in a tense legal battle with his ex-wife, Claudette. The stress took a visible toll. His health and mental state began to unravel. He grew so thin and frail that he couldn't find pants that fit, resorting to safety pins just to keep his clothes together. Behind the spotlight, Smokey wasn't just the voice behind romantic ballads. He was a man quietly falling apart. As he watched close friends pass away one by one, faced growing isolation, and fought desperately to keep ownership of the very songs that made him a legend, the weight of it all nearly broke him. As everything around him began to crumble, Smokey Robinson had no idea he was stepping into a long goodbye, saying farewell to the familiar, to lifelong friends, and to a chapter of his life that once served as his guiding light. While he tried to keep fighting, the past clung to him, showing up in every courtroom, every interview, every confession he could no longer outrun. The birth of his youngest son marked a turning point, but also forced him to confront the woman who had once been his rock. That confrontation ended with heartbreak. She left him, and he was kicked out of the home they once shared. For many women, betrayal is a line that can't be crossed. And even after everything he'd been through, at that moment, Smokey still couldn't fully grasp the depth of the pain he had caused, or the weight of the battles he was now facing alone. So, who is the man behind the gentle smile and the voice that's captured millions of hearts? Before he became a global music icon, Smokey Robinson was just a skinny kid growing up in the tough streets of Detroit, a city where nothing came easy and survival was a daily fight. He lived in a cramped house packed with 11 relatives, from cousins to distant family, all squeezed into a space that had little privacy and even less comfort. In Detroit, if you were still breathing, chances were you had to share your bed. It was a city filled with broken dreams, where heroin wasn't a stranger. It was a shadow that followed many teens. But Smokey Robinson wasn't born to be swallowed by that darkness. He was born to rise above it, to create music that could lift people, even for just a moment, out of the weight of their world. Smokey Robinson was born to write music, to create melodies that carried hope through the noise and hardship of the world around him. By the time he was 18, he had written over 100 songs. Not one of them recorded, but every single note was a heartbeat, a lifeline, a way to hold on to faith in the middle of poverty and chaos. For Smokey, music wasn't about chasing fame. It was survival. Each lyric, each tune, was a quiet act of resistance. a way to push back against hunger, fear, and the crushing loneliness that came with growing up in a world that offered no guarantees. And then, fate called his name. When Berry Gordy, the visionary founder of Motown, first heard Smokey Robinson's voice, he didn't just hear talent. He recognized a secret weapon, someone who could help redefine the sound and future of black music in America. In a short time, Smokey became more than just a rising star. He became a symbol for a new generation of young African Americans. With his slick hair, gentle smile, and a voice so raw and emotional it could silence a room, he wasn't just performing. He was giving people something to believe in. Smokey Robinson wasn't just a singer. He was the sound of hope in an era filled with struggle. He married Claudette Rogers, the only woman in the group strong enough to challenge him. For a moment, Smokey's life appeared flawless. Hit songs, a beautiful marriage, sharp suits, and big dreams on the horizon. To the world, Smokey Robinson seemed untouchable, invincible even. But beneath the surface, everything was slowly slipping away, and a new chapter was about to unfold. One that would be filled with challenges, chaos, and the kind of struggles he never saw coming. In the early years of Motown, Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson were practically inseparable. They spent countless hours together, whether in recording sessions, songwriting meetings, interviews, or rehearsals. Their careers blossomed side by side, both signed by Berry Gordy and rising as defining figures of the Motown sound. For years, their close collaboration grew, and slowly, the line between professional and personal began to blur, as feelings evolved beyond just music and business. While still married to Claudette Rogers, Smokey Robinson began developing an unexpectedly close relationship with Diana Ross. In the high-energy, high-pressure world of Motown, where they were constantly together in recording sessions, songwriting, and performances, their bond naturally deepened. Smokey admitted that their connection grew gradually and lasted far longer than he ever anticipated, despite being married. During this time, Claudette stepped back from her singing career to focus on family and raise their children, while Smokey remained consumed with touring, recording, and his rising fame. It was this growing distance between him and Claudette that allowed his relationship with Diana to flourish. Over time, their connection crossed emotional lines neither of them fully recognized until it had gone too far. They were frequently seen together at Motown events, with photos from those occasions capturing the closeness between them. Yet, at the time, their relationship went unreported. While many within the company suspected something was going on, Smokey kept quiet about it, never confirming anything. It wasn't until decades later that he opened up, admitting that it had indeed been a romantic relationship, a bond that, in the end, was difficult to let go of. When the relationship came to an end, Smokey admitted that he realized he still had deep feelings for Claudette and didn't want to hurt her any further. However, by the time the truth came out publicly, it was already too late. Claudette was left to face the pain on her own. While the media remained silent about her suffering, the affair struck a devastating blow to a marriage already fraught with distance, infidelity, and the overwhelming pressures of fame and work. Photos from the late 1970s show Smokey attending events alone, a stark contrast to the years when Claudette had always been by his side. Their relationship, once full of closeness, slowly faded into distance. When asked about Diana in interviews after the fact, Smokey didn't deny the affair. He admitted that, though brief, it was intense and left a lasting impact on him. However, he never fully revealed how this relationship affected both his marriage and his music career. Over time, the pieces of the story began to fall into place. In 1986, Smokey and Claudette officially divorced, marking the end of a marriage that had unraveled on many levels: personal, musical, and legal. Their lives, once in sync, were now completely out of harmony. Smokey's brief relationship with Diana Ross, though fleeting, left a lasting impact on his life. It wasn't a rumor or mere speculation. Smokey himself confirmed it. The affair began while he was still married to Claudette, and although it was short-lived, the tension it caused in their marriage lingered, casting a shadow they couldn't escape. Even after the relationship ended, the growing emotional distance between Smokey and Claudette became undeniable. They stopped performing together, stopped traveling together, and by the early 1980s, their bond had dissolved entirely. It was then that the turning point Claudette had long feared finally arrived. "My youngest son was born," Smokey recalled. "I had to finally tell her the truth, and she kicked me out." He paused before adding, "I don't blame her. I mean, most women have their boundaries, and that's where she drew the line. I'd been through so much at that time, but I didn't fully understand the weight of it all back then." As Smokey continued to tour and work at Motown, he began another relationship, this time with a woman outside the music industry. That relationship led to the birth of a son, born while Smokey was still legally married to Claudette. Years later, in an interview, Smokey recalled Claudette's exact words when she first learned about the affair. "Don't bring this mess to me. Don't bring this child to me." When Smokey finally acknowledged the child, it was the final blow. Claudette had already endured years of prolonged separations, emotional distance, and the rumors that swirled within the Motown family. But the birth of this child shattered whatever remained of their connection, and there was no way to repair what had been broken. In 1986, they filed for divorce, officially ending their 27-year marriage, a relationship that began long before Smokey became the legend he was. They had 2 children and decades of shared music, but nothing left to hold them together. After the divorce, Claudette largely stayed out of the public eye, speaking mostly about music when she did. In contrast, Smokey became more open, especially as he started to publicly reflect on his life and the choices that had defined it. Smokey didn't deny what had happened, openly acknowledging that it marked a turning point in every aspect of his life. The child born from this relationship never entered the public eye, but their presence was a silent catalyst for permanent change in Smokey's world. His family, once intact, was no longer whole. The marriage was unraveling, and the personal fallout led to even darker days. Addiction took hold, he disappeared from the public eye, and he later described those years as the darkest of his life. The divorce didn't just shatter his marriage, it disrupted the very rhythm of his career. For the first time since Motown's inception, Smokey wasn't recording regularly. Touring slowed to a crawl, songwriting came to a halt, and he became a rare sight at meetings. When Smokey did appear in public, he looked thin and exhausted. By the early 1980s, the image of the calm, controlled Smokey Robinson began to fade. On stage, his suits still fit, but off stage, they hung loosely on his frail frame. His weight plummeted, his voice grew thinner, and his eyes sank deep into his face. Later, he would describe himself as a walking corpse. He admitted to weighing only 120 pounds at 5 feet 11 inches and struggling to find clothes that fit, resorting to safety pins just to keep his pants on. "I got to that point just by walking around. I'm 5 feet 11 inches and weigh 120 pounds, and I couldn't find pants that fit, so I had to use safety pins to hold them," Smokey recalled. His friends could see the drastic change, but many didn't know how to address it or simply chose to remain silent. Some people thought Smokey was just stressed, but others saw that the problem ran much deeper. Throughout most of the 1960s and 1970s, he had stayed away from heavy drugs, using only marijuana and avoiding the widespread cocaine culture of the music world. But after his divorce, he gave in. What began as a small habit gradually morphed into a daily routine. Recording sessions became less frequent, business meetings were missed, and Smokey's once disciplined life started to unravel. He shared that there were days he'd look in the mirror and not recognize the person staring back. Music, energy, and purpose had all faded away. The longer the spiral lasted, the harder it became to break free. But then, in the midst of it all, something unexpected happened. A woman, a church pastor, reached out to Smokey. She didn't know him personally, but she shared that she had been praying for him for over a year. She told him that God had revealed to her that he was on the brink, dangerously close to a serious health crisis, potentially a stroke, if he didn't stop using cocaine. What struck Smokey was how she spoke to him about the pain he was experiencing, about the very things he had never confided in anyone. It was as if she knew him, his struggles, and the depths of his despair, even without him saying a word. She told him, "I don't know you, but I've prayed for you for a year in my prayer room, and your name came out of my mouth." That moment marked a turning point for Smokey. He walked into her church, a man on the edge, and made the decision to stop, to give it all up. He never entered a formal rehab program, and he never relapsed. For Smokey, it was that single, powerful moment, the prayer of a stranger and his own decision to break free, that ultimately saved his life. The collapse happened quietly, but the recovery was even more so. Smokey withdrew from the spotlight, and for a long time, people assumed he had walked away from music altogether. What they didn't realize was that he was quietly starting over. Years after the divorce, Claudette Robinson re-entered Smokey's life, not through a phone call or a public reunion, but through a legal document. In 2014, Claudette took Smokey to court, suing for the rights to the songs he had written during their marriage. The lawsuit revolved around the issue of copyright ownership, with Smokey successfully reclaiming the rights using a provision in the 1976 Copyright Act that allows artists to regain rights they had previously signed away under potentially unfair terms. Smokey filed to claim sole ownership of the works, but Claudette countered, arguing that as his wife at the time the songs were written, she was entitled to 50% ownership, not as a collaborator, but under California's community property laws. The case wasn't just about royalties, it also involved real estate. Claudette contended that the hits Smokey was now claiming as his own were, in her view, joint creations, born from their shared life and marriage. Claudette had sacrificed her career to stay home and raise their children. And now, decades later, she felt excluded from what she believed was their joint creative legacy. Court records revealed that the dispute was about more than just money. It exposed years of unresolved tension, blurred financial boundaries, and communication breakdowns that never healed after their divorce. Claudette's legal team accused Smokey of violating their 1989 settlement agreement, which required him to safeguard her financial interests in their past work. She also leveled charges of fraud and breach of fiduciary duty, arguing that he had acted both selfishly and unlawfully. Smokey's legal team, however, countered with a focus on copyright law, asserting that the right to restore copyright belonged solely to the author, not to a spouse, partner, or former collaborator. Claudette's legal team also argued that her lawsuit threatened new business opportunities tied to the work Smokey had successfully reclaimed. The case raised a critical question in the music industry. When an artist regains control of their work, does the ex-spouse have the right to claim compensation for songs written during the marriage? To this day, no definitive ruling has settled this issue. The ownership and songwriting dispute between Smokey and Claudette wasn't just a legal battle. It raised broader questions about who truly shaped Smokey Robinson's career, who deserves to be recognized alongside him in the musical legacy he created. This question was first clearly posed in 1987 when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame made the controversial decision to induct Smokey as a solo artist, despite the profound contributions of the Miracles members to his success. At the ceremony in Cleveland, where Smokey was awarded the highest honor in the music industry, the crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Headlines celebrated Smokey's unique voice, his timeless hits, and his profound influence on an entire generation of R&B artists. But behind the scenes, one question lingered. Where were the miracles? The founding members and co-writers who had been with Smokey from the very beginning of Motown, shaping the sound and success of the label, were left uncredited. Ronnie White, Pete Moore, Bobby Rogers, and Claudette Robinson, the members of the Miracles, were far more than just backing vocalists. They were co-writers and integral architects of Motown's unique sound, blending doo-wop, gospel, and romantic pop to create something entirely revolutionary. Together, they made history with timeless hits like Shop Around, You Really Got a Hold on Me, Mickey's Monkey, and Go-Go Song. Songs that laid the very foundation of Motown. Beyond their musical contributions, the Miracles were also pioneers, becoming the first Motown group to appear on national television and the first to tour in the racially segregated South under the Motown banner. However, when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame honored Smokey, only his name was recognized. There was no joint ceremony, no acknowledgement of the band, and no tribute to the musicians who had stood by him through it all. The reaction from fans was swift and intense, many feeling it was a betrayal. Music journalists and historians quickly pointed out that Smokey's success as a solo artist would not have been possible without the Miracles, his bandmates who had been instrumental in shaping his rise to fame. The decision to honor him alone was seen as a significant oversight, ignoring the collective genius that helped build the Motown empire. While the other members of the Miracles did not speak out publicly about their anger, their disappointment was undeniable. Claudette Robinson, Smokey's ex-wife and the only female member of the group, fought tirelessly in court to be recognized. Yet, despite their contributions, she and the rest of the band were erased from music history once again, this time by one of the most prestigious organizations in the industry. Smokey himself never made a strong public statement about this omission. Some believed he had no control over the decision, while others felt he should have spoken out more forcefully. Regardless, the moment passed, and it wasn't until 2012 that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame rectified the mistake. 24 years later, the Miracles were inducted, and Smokey Robinson was there to witness his band finally receive the recognition they so rightfully deserved. I've always felt that the Miracles should have been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Smokey said. And when they inducted me the second time, I was really surprised. It was a great honor. At last, the recognition the Miracles received marked a pivotal moment in honoring the group's significant role in shaping music history. It illuminated the contributions of Smokey Robinson and his bandmates, whose creativity helped forge some of the greatest musical milestones. By the time the Miracles were finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, with Claudette Robinson representing the group, the plaque was updated to reflect the full scope of their contributions. But for the fans who had witnessed the first controversial induction in 1987, the damage had been done, and the wounds of that omission could never be fully healed. The moment the group was meant to share together had passed, and the recognition, though earned, was never truly complete. Even after the Miracles were inducted into the Hall of Fame a decade later, the absence of some of the original members made it impossible to ignore the deep sense of loss Smokey Robinson felt. He had outlived most of his bandmates, and with each passing year, that loss grew more profound as those who had been closest to him were no longer there. Marvin Gaye, Smokey's close friend, was one of the most profound losses of his life. They were more than just Motown colleagues, they were true friends. In the early years of Motown, they saw each other almost every day, and Smokey was the one Marvin would call late at night to share new melodies over the phone. When Marvin began to experiment with his own songwriting style, leading to the groundbreaking album What's Going On. Smokey was one of the first to offer encouragement, truly believing in Marvin's vision when others were uncertain. But in 1984, Smokey was devastated by the loss of Marvin Gaye, who was tragically shot and killed by his own father, just one day before his 45th birthday. The news left Smokey both shocked and heartbroken. Yet, Marvin wasn't the first monumental loss Smokey had to endure. Back in 1964, the legendary Sam Cooke, whom Smokey had long admired, was tragically murdered. Smokey not only revered Cooke's powerful voice and unmatched talent, but also respected the way he navigated the music industry, fiercely protecting both his artistry and his career. The sudden death of Sam Cooke, when Smokey was just 24, left a permanent mark on his heart, a loss that stayed with him through the years. In 1988, the passing of his brother Arthur Franklin and longtime music director Seal Franklin added to the heartbreak. Arthur, Smokey's closest friend and companion since childhood, was a constant presence in his life. When Arthur passed away in 2018, Smokey was there to deliver the eulogy at the funeral, standing before world leaders and fans alike. He spoke of his brother as if they were back in Detroit, reminiscing about the days they spent singing together on the porch as children. As Smokey turned 80, he continued to perform, but the stage felt emptier. His beloved voices, once part of his musical family, were no longer there beside him. The original members of the Miracles, who had stood by Smokey since the early days of Motown, gradually passed away, leaving Smokey to carry the legacy alone. Bobby Rogers, known for his incredible harmonies and strong stage presence, passed away in 2013. For years later, Pete Moore, the bass player and vocal arranger for the group, also left this world. With each loss, Smokey became one of the last surviving members of that legendary generation. His dressing room, once filled with the energy of his bandmates, grew quieter, and memorial services became more frequent. Though the music still played on, Smokey's closest friends were no longer there to share it with him. Then the pandemic struck, yet another challenge in his long journey. The irreplaceable losses forced him to continue singing, but now he sang alone. In 2020, as Smokey Robinson turned 80, he had already faced countless obstacles: lawsuits, addiction, divorce, and the heartbreaking loss of many who had been there from the start. Yet, nothing tested him like the arrival of COVID-19. As the virus spread in its deadliest wave, Smokey contracted it. Initially, he felt only fatigue, but soon he struggled to breathe. His oxygen levels plummeted, and he was rushed to the hospital, isolated from his family, his music, and the world he had known. The man whose voice had captivated millions could barely speak above a whisper. In later interviews, Smokey confessed that what frightened him the most wasn't the thought of death itself, but the terrifying possibility of losing his voice, the one thing that had defined him and shaped his legacy. Thinking he was on the brink of death, Smokey Robinson made a miraculous recovery. Despite the countless challenges he had faced over the years, addiction, heartbreak, loss, and public battles, he continued to share his timeless love songs with the world. However, beneath his emotional voice and the magic he brought to music, there was much more. A man who carried the weight of his own pain, struggles, and deep personal battles. Smokey Robinson was not just an icon. He was a real person, shaped by his imperfections, who used his experiences to craft some of the most powerful and enduring songs in history. Despite everything he went through, Smokey Robinson never truly gave up on music. He kept writing, recording, and performing, with each song an expression of the resilience that defined him. Music became the sanctuary where he found the strength to carry on, even when life seemed to knock him down. His voice, a testament to his spirit, never wavered. Through it all, Smokey has remained a beacon of inspiration, showing us that no matter how many obstacles we face, we can rise again. Let's take a moment to reflect on the incredible journey of this music legend, who, despite all his challenges, continues to stand strong and make his mark on the world. Smokey Robinson's timeless love songs have not only captured the hearts of fans around the world, but also stand as a powerful reminder of how music can heal, transcend pain, and offer solace in the toughest of times. Through the highs and lows of his life, he has proven that even in the face of loss and hardship, music can be a source of strength. Smokey's journey is a testament to the power of faith, resilience, and an unwavering passion for his craft. He remains a symbol of perseverance, inspiring generations to keep going, no matter the challenges that life throws their way. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed these inspiring stories, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on future videos. We'll see you next time with more touching and meaningful stories. Goodbye.